Alright, can I just get you to state your name for the video? You can go.
George LEECH.
Mary Joyner.
Alright. I want to start with you, Mary. How long have you lived here in Wilson?
Wow. Well, the second time, the first time.
First time.
First time, till I was actually 22 years.
So you were born here.
Yeah, I was born here. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you left for college, or you said you left at 22. So did you leave for college, or you just had to get out of here?
I got married
Okay.
and left. Yeah.
And then you came back when?
3 years ago.
Okay.
In fact,
3 years
next month will be 3 years.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And then George, same question.
I was born in Wilmington, North Carolina,
Okay.
1943. I lived there until age 18 and went off to college at North Carolina Central University. Graduated and came to Wilson to teach school in 1966.
Okay. And you were a history teacher.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And that's the only thing you've taught, is you've been a history guy.
Well, yes, for 27 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next 13 and a half years were in administration. Still in
Okay.
education, but in administration. I was an assistant principal for everybody, and then finally principal in my own right.
Okay. And you said you left at 22. So what changes have you seen? I mean, I'm sure there's been significant, but what kind of, like, the big changes have you noticed coming back to Wilson?
Especially in East Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
As I understand, it used to be a vibrant business district at one time.
Really, not much.
Not much has changed.
But the changes, the only changes that I've really noticed is the changes in, I guess, segregation,
Mm-hmm.
integration, and Wilson. Before I left here, it was like the black on this end, the white on the other end, which that has changed. I noticed that really the white has moved out of the city, and the black has moved into the city. And I've seen not so much as a growth and productive in the city. I've seen the farmers, like in the country, you know,
Mm-hmm.
the farming area. We not out picking tobacco or picking cotton. Those type thing has changed.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really sort of disappointed that it's not that much growth has taken place
Mm-hmm.
within Wilson County.
Uh-huh.
The city has deteriorated.
Right.
The inner cities
Mm-hmm.
has deteriorated. I so forth that I've seen,
Right.
like especially Saratoga, Stanford
Mm-hmm.
area. I've seen a lot of deterioration
Yeah.
within the cities, which I'm totally surprised.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's not development.
Right.
What I mean, you know, I inner city development.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I've noticed that.
And I
It
mean,
has gone out into the counties. There's no really growth within the inner cities.
mm-hmm.
It's all has taken place with that in the counties.
Right.
And where I live now,
Mm-hmm.
before I left here, you wouldn't dare to live there. So
Where is that? Where do you live? Where do you live now?
I live right off Garcia Road on Cardinal Drive, back up in the area they call well, actually it's the clubhouse is called Garcia Clubhouse.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
I live in that area.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so before I left here, the only thing that I saw took place within that area was the so-called housekeepers going back there and coming out. They would go back at 7 o'clock in the morning with their gray and white dress on and then they out by 5 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, that has changed.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Huh.
yeah,
No,
And
go ahead.
Is there a reason you think? I mean,
that it has changed.
or the reason the inner city or the city itself, while the county has grown, you said. What do you think is the reason? You know, the inner city has gone down so bad.
I think it's because of the people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you don't have the professionals in the city to make it grow.
Mm-hmm.
And our young people, when they get out of college, everyone leaves. So there's no one here, stays here
Mm-hmm.
to cause growth.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't, I understand why. Because there's no jobs
Mhm.
for them. And it's just the way things have taken place.
So it seems
I
like,
noticed that the hospital, you know,
right.
when I left here, it was Mercy Hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you only have one hospital.
Yep.
So it has changed and just like I say, 9th Street downtown. And we would come to Wilson on Saturdays. We would work the farm all week.
Right.
And we'd catch the bus, come to Wilson on Saturday, do our shopping and whatever. And then we would catch the bus at 1 o'clock.
Uh-huh.
6 o'clock, we catch that bus back out into the country. And when we came to Wilson, we would go across the track to the stores to shop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
We didn't stay, you didn't lobby across the track.
but you could
You
shop.
came back, you shopped,
Yeah.
You could,
and then you
okay.
came back to cross the track to
Right.
do your lobbying. So,
So you lived out in the country. Where at in the country did you grow up?
Saratoga.
Saratoga. Okay.
Saratoga.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I also grew up at out here by Parker's.
Mhm.
The Parker's Barbecue.
Oh, yeah.
We used to live in a house. There was a house right back of Parker's, and we lived back there for a while.
Yeah.
And I attend Everett Street, and I attend Darden
Hmm.
High School before going to the country.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and I can remember in Saratoga, when I was in grade school, there was a school in Saratoga for the black. There was a school in Saratoga for the white.
Yeah.
Now that was during your time in school. You saw
My
it.
time in school.
Okay.
My time in school.
Mm-hmm.
And I could never understand why. And I used to ask my mom all the time, why the white kids riding the bus and we're walking? I remember that. And
What did she say?
you know,
What'd your mama say?
I remember that.
How did your mama answer your question? How did your mama answer that question?
Well, she said, well, I don't know, that's the way it is.
Yeah.
You know, they have, and they had, their school was much closer than ours. We had to walk.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
Yeah, and I can remember so well that they would spit on us out the window,
Wow.
riding the bus, and we would be walking, and they on the
Okay.
bus, and they would spit on us. They would be going to Saratoga's Central School.
And you were going to Darden.
And no, it was a school
Elementary.
between Saratoga and Stanford.
Mm-hmm.
There was a little school.
Yeah.
I don't remember what college. That was before they built Spates School, Spates High School. That was before. There was a little school there, and that's the school we used to go to. A little 2-room school.
Do you feel like you got a good education there, or?
I did,
Mhm.
I did, and then when they built Spates and all Spates, then they closed that and we went to Spates.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Was Spade integrated?
Hmm?
Was Spade integrated?
Spates.
So what grade
No,
was
Spates did not integrate.
Spade was a black school.
The black school
Uh-huh.
they built. I think it was in the 70s when they integrated.
Yeah.
Because
I think it was
kids
early
from Spates
70s.
went to Saratoga
Mhm.
Spates
Because North Carolina was one of the last,
class.
or the last states to do the integration. So
Yeah.
it had to be late '60s to early '70s. Yeah, right there.
Yeah, I think it was in the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
If I may comment, in the opening school year, 1970,
So you were teaching when?
yes,
Mhm.
the schools opened here on a desegregated basis.
Okay.
Darden was closed as a high school. Spate was closed as a high school.
Mm-hmm.
Springfield was closed as a high school. And Elm City, Frederick Douglass High School had already closed, but this was something that the community did that was a separate school system. As a matter of fact, there were 3 separate school systems in Wilson County at the time. There was the Elm City schools, Wilson County schools, and Wilson City schools.
Oh wow.
We had 3 superintendents, 3 central offices,
Mhm.
and all of that. And it was not until maybe last half of the 70s that the county commissioners saw the wisdom in combining them. And of course, I'm confident the state and state budget also saw that wisdom as well. And we all merged into Wilson County schools. But in 1970, the schools did open on a desegregated basis. But the changes, you were talking about changes, when I got here in 66, I guess Mary,
Because that's what I was going to ask you, so that's fine. Go ahead.
yeah, Mary had gone. And what really, I came from a farm,
Mm-hmm.
all right?
In Wilmington, this was.
No, in Brunswick County.
Okay.
I grew up, born in Wilmington, grew up in Brunswick County, which is the adjoining county.
Mm-hmm.
And my parents were both landowners and sharecroppers. My maternal grandmother on my mother's side got her land in 1936 in the midst of the Depression. And she made arrangements for her 2 oldest sons to buy land next to each other, right next to her.
Mm-hmm.
So that part of the family was kind of independent, and we had a little bit of land too, but we didn't have the money to clear it, and so we moved on a white man's farm,
Mm-hmm.
the Somersets, and sharecropped for 3 years. Now, my father was a perfectionist at everything he did. He did carpentry and he farmed. He was a perfectionist. The landlord that we had was a good man.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say that. And he says, we are going to make money from cotton, tobacco, and sweet potatoes. You can plant corn, peanuts, all the vegetables, anything you want, and you can raise livestock. I'm not interested in that. There's plenty of land for that. So the things that he wasn't interested in, my father ventured into, and he made extra money that he didn't have to share with anyone.
Mm-hmm.
So when Hurricane Hazel came and blew down Myrtle Beach, because
Right.
our land was very near South Carolina, we bought a whole house that one side of the house had blown out.
And how old were you? I'm sorry to interrupt, but how old were you at this time?
1953, I was 10 years old, and Hazel came in 54.
Okay,
So I was 11.
okay,
And we bought the house. We moved it on our land. My mother had purchased the 50 acres, half a mile from grandma. So we moved on our land, built the house from that, with that used material, the 2-story, because we had 7 children.
Huh.
And so I experienced all of the sharecropping and all of that. And I experienced the segregation. We heard, don't do this, don't do that, don't go here, don't go there. But when I was in the 9th grade, in 1957, my father fled the South, sort of, and went north, and he worked in industries there, and would send money back. So I was in the 9th grade, and I saw the Little Rock, Arkansas situation in 57.
Oh, yeah.
Eisenhower called out, well, it went on for a while until Eisenhower called out the troops.
Right.
I called my father and asked him, now, I'm seeing people running up behind African Americans, kicking them in the rump. And they not fighting back. What is that about? He tried to explain it. And that scene stimulated everything, changed me as a 9th grader. From then on, I was toned in to the civil rights movement. All of that caught my eye. When I went off to college, my father wanted me to go to law school. And so I enrolled with a major in business, a minor in English. That didn't last but 10 minutes because I had these wonderful history teachers, and I was just welded to history and the movement. I became a member of the NAACP in college, and we did lots of things that welded us to the movement of freedom and equality.
Right.
And my mind, I finally got my mind right, political science and history.
This was at Central?
At Central, yes. So I marched in 63.
Yeah.
And when the demonstration started in Greensboro,
It
wasn't long before that came over to Durham, on to St. Augustine's and in Raleigh.
Yeah.
And at Shaw's campus, SNCC was founded.
Yeah.
And we got a SNCC man here,
Bob Zelmer.
Bob Zelman, who was there, and there were several others. So these changes engulfed just before the baby boomers, because I was born in 43, not quite a baby boomer.
Right.
And made us what we were to become for those who was looking at society and those who saw the injustices and the inequality.
Right.
So I read early W.B. Du Bois, what's the title of his book?
Souls of Black folks?
Souls of Black Folks, yes, I'm sorry. Souls of Black Folks. And when he said that the older centuries knew the problem of the 20th century is a problem of the color line. And then he had, I read Up From Slavery by Booker T. Washington in high school. Because Washington was the star when we were in high school. Booker T. Washington and George Washington Carver.
Yeah.
They were the renowned educators that we learned everything about. I can almost quote the speech by heart, the Atlanta Compromise. Then reading The Souls of Black Folks in chapter 3, book of W.E.B. Du Bois, criticized him of Mr. Booker T. Washington and others.
Yeah.
And he laid him out for saying, in essence, he said that with that speech, he compromised, it's called the Atlanta Compromise. He compromised the rights of African Americans to second-class citizenship.
Uh-huh.
And no one dared, other than Du Bois, to criticize him, and Du Bois wasn't long before that criticism was silenced.
Yeah.
Now, when I came to teach, now, I got deeper into that in my college classes because we had a wide array of African American history classes
Huh.
and real excellent teachers.
Yeah.
So when I came here to teach, I was kind of pushing to let's do Afro-American studies here in the school system,
Was this at Darden? Or?
at Darden,
Yeah,
under Mr. Barnes.
yeah.
And Mr. Barnes says, well, I don't know. Let me think about it. It was in the curriculum one time in his tenure,
Yeah.
but it disappeared.
Was this integrated at this time?
No, we were not
Not
integrated.
integrated.
We were segregated.
Uh-huh.
So me and another teacher who has passed on, Mrs. Diane Poindexter, was a married named Turner. We did a little manual for the teaching of Afro-American studies.
Huh.
But by the time we got ready to launch, we desegregated.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
And I had learned enough about Wilson at that time and how once we got to Fike High School and how the people reacted to us, that I kind of kept that manual to myself.
Uh-huh.
But then 2 years in, the class of 72 launched a massive protest
At Fight?
at Fike. Yes,
You remember that?
she probably was not here then.
Okay.
Well, you were here at
Yeah,
72.
you've been going for 3 years.
Yeah.
That's-
They launched a massive protest. They would protest during the day, and we'd have to show up to class. And it got bigger and bigger, and it engulfed almost 90% of the kids. So finally, they walked out, and they were gone for 3 days.
So this is all the black kids?
All the black kids
Okay.
walked out.
Okay.
They were gone for 3 days. When they returned, they had a list of demands. 1, change the mascot. 2,
What was the mascot?
the mascot was the Cyclones.
Okay, why did they want to change that? Just
Because that was the mascot of the white school.
oh, gotcha.
They wanted a
Right,
mascot
right, they're
that would represent both races.
Mhm,
There
gotcha.
were Trojans over here at Darden, and so the Trojans were gone, but they said, no, we Trojans. If we can't be Trojans, y'all can't be Cyclones.
Gotcha.
They want to change the mascot, and they wanted Afro-American studies taught.
Yeah.
So the principal agreed to that. And he called me in and he says, I understand that your transcript reflects quite a bit of Afro-American studies. So I want you to go ahead and teach this class. This was first semester. This was like in the fall, about this time of year when that was going on. I said, okay, that's fine. I get with the librarian and we will bring in some sources and resources, and we'll teach the class next year. He said, oh no. you got to have this ready at the second semester.
Wow.
So I did, and the fight was very cooperative
Really?
in acquiring materials. And that, I think because it came out of a protest, it was probably the most attended class that one could have. I had 40 kids every semester.
Huh.
Were
And
these mostly black? or-
all black
All black.
the first 3 years.
Okay.
But after the first 3 years, every year thereafter, white students trickled in.
Mhm.
Really?
Yes,
Wow.
they did.
Huh.
And they won the ball. I mean, all they didn't know, they read. Now, I learned something very interesting about standards. They said, well, I couldn't find a text that suited my fancy. I didn't like Charles H. Wesley's The Miseducation of the Negro. And all. That didn't cover. But Dr. John Hope Franklin, who's not gone on, had written, they said, a college textbook called From Slavery to Freedom.
Yeah.
I had the school to buy that book, 30 copies, and we used it. The children read it. I told them, I said, "Now, Dr. Franklin doesn't know anything about y'all's vocabulary. So when you're reading, get a dictionary and look up the words that you don't know." And they really got involved.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. The subject, the way he arranged the subject and the content was really good. After the Civil War, he had a chapter called Efforts to Attain Peace. And the next chapter was Losing the Peace. Of course, that was the Reconstruction period when they put in all the laws that advanced African Americans.
Right.
And the next chapter covered 1877, the failure of the Reconstruction when the Southerners called themselves redeeming the South.
Yeah.
And pushed all African Americans out. The children that's what really got their attention. From that point on, I was able to just cover almost all of that in that period of time, and there was no criticism. It was well accepted.
Yeah.
The children see me now and they say, "Oh, that's Mr. Leach. That was my Black history teacher," as if that was all that was taught. But that was just one period per day, and all the other periods I taught United States history.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
how about that?
Desegregation.
Yeah, that's a great.
Let's talk about that a little bit. Desegregation has positives and negatives.
Right.
The negatives, or at least one, we lost a community institution. Our school was really a community school in segregation. It was the center of the secular social life. All right? Now, you know the church has always been the center of the spiritual life.
Right.
In the African American community. But everything else, all secular activities, took place at the school. You know, now we have to rent the auditoriums and all that kind of thing. You just come to the school and do what you were going to do. You're going to have something, you're going to have it at school. PTO, parent night, standing room only. All right? I saw a total change in desegregation where the African American parents would, after we got in and all the protest was gone, the African American parents did not come to check on their children's education.
On that note, Mary, how involved were your parents in your education?
My mom was very involved in that. There was 9 of us.
Okay.
9 of us.
Mm-hmm.
And just like I say, we lived on the farm, and she would see to, you know, we going to school, we have what we need. And when they did segregate space in Saratoga, she was working for the Tysons,
Mhm.
the Tysons farm. And they did not want my sisters to go to the white school.
Mm-hmm.
So they threatened her. She was cooking in their kitchen, taking care of their kids.
Oh, so the Tysons didn't want her to go.
Hmm?
The Tysons didn't want her to go to White
The
School.
Tysons did not want my mother
Gotcha.
to let us go
Mhm.
to the white school,
Mm-hmm.
and said that they would not be responsible for what happened.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but she still encouraged us to go
Yeah.
to school, to college, and whatever. So that's when I decide, she called me, I decide, it's like Mr. Leach, to get involved.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a picture of me and my mom. We was in Harry Tyson's grandmother's kitchen. I'm gonna have to bring you that picture.
Okay. I'll see.
And they would tell my mom to let us work on the farm versus going to school.
Wow.
And she said no,
Mm-hmm.
no. If they have to walk 20 miles,
They're going.
no.
Mm-hmm.
My kids would go to school.
Mm-hmm.
So she was very pushy about, about her and concerned about her education, and I'm glad
And were your
that she
parents,
was.
George, were your parents on the same?
Yes, they were not educated. My father got most of his education as a GI,
Mm-hmm.
coming out of World War II. And my mother managed to finish the 9th grade. But both of them believe that the key to our futures, and we had 7 children, was education.
Education.
And that's when I said my father kind of fled the South. He had gone north beforehand and had come back because he did not want to be separated from the family. But then some other incidents occurred, and he says, threw his hat on the floor, and he says, "I'll just be so and so if I'll put up with this. I got to go. Plus $40 a week will not take care of these kids."
Mhm.
That's what he told my mom. And so he moved to Connecticut. And that's all he talked about. I had a sister was a senior at North Carolina Central when I came as a freshman. And he knew that he wasn't making enough money to send both of us. But I had farmed myself. I had farmed tobacco my senior year. And I had enough money for the first semester. So I paid my first semester. Then he asked me to stay out a semester until he could
Pay for the
other child who graduated and became a teacher. And I went back and finished up. But before I got out, our son went to Federal State. And he got drafted in the Marine Corps. He got drafted. That's the second time the Marines drafted. And had he stayed in school before he finished, another son entered North Carolina Central University in 1965. But my father had made means, extra jobs, independent contracting. He did everything. He worked day and night because he had 2 full-time jobs.
Yeah.
And he did extra so that he could send whoever wanted to go to college. So the emphasis on education wasn't just lip service.
Right.
It was, I will do whatever it takes for my children to be educated, at least 1 degree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I went to San Diego State.
Uh-huh.
My husband was military, so when I left home, we got transferred to San Diego, California. So at that time, my sisters and brother was here in school. So I went to San Diego. I went to nursing school. And when I graduated, I sent money back home so my sisters and brother could graduate.
Mm-hmm.
So, because working in the kitchen, my mother didn't make that much.
Yeah.
So that's the way, and as each one of us graduated and left home, we sent money back home. So our sisters and brothers could graduate.
Good.
So that's how our family got educated.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Maybe wasn't that kind of typical of most African American
Most
families?
African American.
Because that's certainly what I did and what my sister did
right.
as well.
And then we've heard this story over and over, not
Yeah.
only from parents, but that there was a network of adults who supported you. In fact, more than one person told us this story that said, if you got in trouble at school, your mama knew about it before you got home.
Exactly.
And you felt like the preacher knew your mama,
Yeah.
and the teacher knew your mama and your daddy.
Everybody.
And that there was, but then George was talking about after integration, how it was a mixed bag.
Yeah.
And then your story about the 2 mascots, the Trojans and the Cyclones.
Right.
And then you all went over there and you were expected to be cyclones.
Mhm.
That's kind of a symbol for, taking people and saying, we're gonna integrate you. We're gonna throw you in with these other people and you just be like them and
You
everything.
become them.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
And that's what caused the protest.
Right.
Yeah, the
You
children
wanna be
Yeah, I never heard about that protest.
The children, well, you know what? Now that's one of the reasons why I was holding back my interview, because I had intended to bring some documents
Okay.
Yeah.
from the Wilson Daily Times, and let's talk about the views of the community on desegregation.
Yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
starting with education and as a teacher at Darden, the Darden faculty sent messages to the superintendent that we were not in compliance with the Brown ruling.
Uh-huh.
All right, and I hear that the school board attorney said put that in the trash can.
Huh.
I can't substantiate that. But last time we sent him a resolution, and whereas the Supreme Court, and whereas funding is not this, and where, it was full of data and facts as to why we should desegregate.
Yeah.
And that had an impact. Of course, the superintendent tried to find out who did what. But in the meantime, that summer came, and a board member, I'm not going to call that board member's name, a board member was in New York, and someone from the newspaper called the board member in New York and said, they're planning to desegregate these schools when they open. And she commented that she wouldn't have any of it over her dead body or something to that effect. And it was in July, I know it was in July of 1970, and I wanted to get that article out of the paper because she being a board member and an elected official,
Yeah.
expressed or at least echoed the sentiments of the white community. The black community was pushing for desegregation. We thought that we would get better opportunities for our children.
Yeah.
No more second-class books and all this kind of stuff. We thought that anyway. And so we pushed hard for desegregation, but we didn't think about the other byproducts of what we might lose.
Right.
Now, also at the beginning of desegregation, there was a cadre of black teachers and white teachers.
Yeah.
A serious decline in the number of black teachers began and continued right on down until today. All right? And I never will accept the notion that we cannot find qualified African Americans to come into the classroom. I don't buy that.
Right.
I came through a vibrant teacher education program. I had been equipped to teach, including the passage of all tests. National teacher exam, one time, you take 4 or 5 times, pass it the first time, because the school and the program prepared us to be there. We were not second class anything,
Yeah.
but that was the general
Right.
notion that African American teachers were not as good.
Right.
Well, I do believe this, can't prove it, but I believe that the superintendent handpicked the teachers that he wanted to assign to Fike High School
Yeah.
based on who got there.
Yeah.
And I know it was the cream of the crop from Darden High School in the core courses, history, English, math, and science.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So
Uh-huh.
maybe we benefited a little bit from that,
Right.
but the children became extremely disenchanted. Now, the class of 73, that's the next class, they protested a little bit as well. They launched a protest. But the adherence and loyalty to the old schools were giving away.
Right.
Fike was a senior high school, had only 2 grades. So in 2 years, the children at Fike High School who knew the traditions of the Cyclones graduated.
Yeah.
Now Darden was a 4-year school, so there was still some kids going to Fike who remember traditions of the Trojans. So there was some moaning and groaning a little bit. But by 1974, the protest had subsided. In the curriculum was divided into tracks:
Right.
academic, intermediate,
Yeah.
and just regular stuff.
Right.
And so was the standard of education.
Yeah.
That is one of the disadvantages that I want to talk about. The kids in the regular classes saw that the expectation of them was minuscule. So they just would not work.
Yeah.
So in the segregated schools, everybody's, there's heterogeneous
Yeah.
classes.
Yeah.
And everybody met the standard or they didn't pass.
Right.
Now, if you look at the graduates from Darden High School, and I've made it a business to meet as many as I could that held high stations in life. And there were so many that I've heard about and got a chance to meet who, because the school had high expectations of them, they had high expectations of themselves in real life.
Right.
It seems as if the self-esteem of the African American children declined in the desegregated school unless they had a strong, supporting family. Then that seemed to have made a difference. And then, of course, the African American families really, really felt good when their child was placed in a college preparatory track. Obviously, nobody would say, well, I don't want my child to be there.
Yeah.
And that was held to a minimum. The top student in the class, valedictorian. See, these kind of things continue to influence the stereotype that you can't get there as the valedictorian of your class. But if you would look at some of these people on the wall and some of our African American leaders in history and read their bios, you'll see right away they were the valedictorian of their class. But as we moved in, that seemed to be something that was removed. You got a lot of scholars from Harvard, for example, they had one of the president. I think now, in the 21st century, we have enough role models, and the prohibitions, the legal prohibitions are long since been gone. Just the changes in attitudes help pave the way for African Americans to climb the ladder of success and professionalism again. So now what we're looking for is really the bootstrap people. That's what I call them. The bootstrap people who will dig in and try to excel. And I'm confident, I have to say this, I'm confident that Mr. Myers long since realized that.
Yeah.
And this project right here
Yeah.
Is
is a manifestation
mm-hmm.
of really what he knows in his head
Yeah.
and what's in his heart.
Yeah. Yeah. That kind of community pride and
Yes.
yeah, this is meant.
And why do you think that is grown? You said like it is really grown in the 21st century. Why do you think that is? Like,
Well, one of the things that the African American has a desire
mm-hmm.
not to be in poverty. As a matter of fact, you go to the schoolhouse right now, the children on free or reduced lunch. Not a single one will tell you that they are in poverty
Mm-hmm.
or that they are poor. They might say, my mom can't afford this or my mom can't afford that, but they won't say that we are poor.
Mm-hmm.
All right? Because nobody wants to be that.
Yeah.
This is America,
Mm-hmm.
and that is not what America is about. While we have 50-some thousand people, 50-some million people, I'm sorry, at the poverty level, we don't want to admit that the majority of those people are African American,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
when they're just a small percentage of the population.
Yeah.
So, I think the 21st century, the mass media that has really conveyed America as land of plenty, has influenced those who get a half an opportunity to try to excel.
Mm-hmm.
And excel they have. You don't have to look now. You still got a lot of people who are first. You know, you say these people were first.
That's right.
All right. You hardly can't find an African American middle class person who's not a first in something public.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Somewhere, not intentional. All right. I knew that the Wilson County ABC board was a totally white board and had been that way ever since it was in existence. And I didn't like that. So I used what little political muscle I had to get nominated to the alcoholic board. But then it was said, oh, he's the first African American to be on. So anybody who's worth their weight in salt, African American, is a first salt.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
That tells you a lot. doesn't it?
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that first salt is plenty. And we keep, like first astronaut in space and all of these kind of
First
things.
president.
Yeah, first president, first everything.
Yeah.
So this is America. And regardless of how we're stratified, the culture of wanting to be and enjoy what you call it? The
American dream.
American dream
Yeah.
is American, and it cuts across
Yeah.
all social strata. It definitely does that. So that's why we, and I was hoping that by now we'd be way into solving all of those social problems.
Yeah.
But the advent of this president was a teaching moment
Mm-hmm.
for all of us. And a lot of it is because he's African American. Most of it is because he's African American. And he's the first. But it's also the growth, the manner in which the political parties are growing. It is the disenchantment with our government as it is constituted.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not so sure that the majority of the people in America are still interested in a democracy.
Right. Right. So do you think that you hear people say that, well, now we got a colorblind society because we got a black president. So we're there. We've accomplished it all. We've got full integration now. So in some ways it keeps people blind. You know, they can point and say, well, we don't have any problems. The president's black. And it can keep people blind to the realities that you were mentioning earlier, George, about disparity in income and levels of poverty and the American dream you're mentioning. I've heard it said that we want to people lift themselves up by their bootstraps, but first you got to have some boots on.
That's right.
You know? And so, you know, so some of us had a little bit of privilege. We had, you know, they said, some people said about George Bush, he was born on third base and thought he hit a triple. You know, you can't see your privilege a lot of times, and you know, this is a white trait, a white privilege trait. You know, why can't those people just be like us? And if you don't see your privilege, you know, you started at third base. And so the American dream looks a little bit different from different perspectives, the reality. But I agree with you. It's there. It's there in everybody born in this country, that drive.
And you know, the colorblindness of our society is so elusive.
Yeah.
Yes, very elusive.
Mythical.
And this president, not him, but the advent of a black president,
Yeah.
has shown us just how elusive the color blindness is.
You just took off the rose-colored glasses. I mean, you took off the thing, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the veil is off.
The veil is off.
The
Yeah,
veil is off.
Yeah, you took off.
And we can see it
To go back to
Clearly.
the boys, yeah.
that we are really not a colorblind
Society.
Society.
At all.
And anytime something happens in the community, the first question is asked, or the second one, is what color was the person?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So we still got a long way to go.
This picking up by your bootstraps. Have you seen this in Wilson? How much have you seen it in Wilson?
Oh yes. There are so many bootstrap people here.